But we begin tonight with Donald Trump's ongoing normalization of racism and violence. 9 years after America's highest profile birther began his first presidential campaign by describing Mexican migrants as rapists and criminals, you can no longer be surprised at the pure venom Donald Trump is capable of spewing about people of color. Even though more often than not, he's referring to people who are fleeing poverty and violence and who are simply looking for the prospect of a better life through hard, often back-breaking work here in the United States. But compassion is not in the vocabulary of the man who paints himself as the second coming of Jesus while ignoring Jesus' own exhortation to welcome the stranger and the immigrant. And in a pair of campaign appearances on Tuesday in Michigan and Wisconsin, Donald Trump made clear that he intends to continue his Hitler-style campaign of dehumanizing migrants of color as he runs for the presidency to keep himself out of prison, unleashing a flood of racial resentment and fake cultural outrage. In the city of Grand Rapids, flanked by local law enforcement officials who apparently don't mind standing next to a man who sicked his most violent followers on police in our nation's capital on January 6, 2021, Trump unleashed a torrent of malicious, racist bile, repeating his violent, ominous language about a bloodbath to attack the Biden administration.
It's a border bloodbath, and it's destroying our country. It's a very bad thing happening. We don't want them coming into our country with contagious diseases, and they have it. The suburban housewives actually like Donald Trump. You know why? Because I'm the one that's going to keep them safe. If you don't want illegal alien criminals crawling through your windows and ransacking your drawers, we will stop the plunder, rape, slaughter, and destruction of our American suburbs, cities, and towns.
In that same speech, Trump also defended his repeated use of dehumanizing, degrading language when referring to people who come across our border.
The Democrats say, please don't call them animals. They're humans. I said, no, they're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals. And Nancy Pelosi told me that. She said, please don't use the word animal, sir, when you're talking about these people. I said, I'll use the word animal because that's what they are.
Trump was referring to the man who authorities believe killed Georgia nursing student Laken Riley, one of two recent crimes Trump has exploited to weaponize the issue of the southern border. The second incident, the tragic murder of 25-year-old Ruby Garcia in Michigan. She was killed last month, allegedly by a man she was in a relationship with and who was in the country illegally. He shot her and left her body on the side of a highway. Ruby's murder has made the rounds on conservative talk radio in Michigan. And in his remarks, Trump used her violent death to whip up his followers. Worth noting that he couldn't even get the basic details of Ruby Garcia's life right.
He shot 17-year-old Ruby. Actually, she was a beautiful, beautiful young woman. Ruby's loved ones and community are left grieving for this incredible young woman, remembering what they called her. They said she had just this most contagious laughter, and when she walked into a room, she lit up that room. And I've heard that from so many people. I spoke to some of her family.
Well, according to Ruby Garcia's sister, and by the way, Ruby was 25, not 17, all of that is a lie. Mavi Garcia told the NBC station in Grand Rapids that Trump never spoke with anyone in her family.
He did not speak with any of us, so it was kind of shocking seeing that he had said that he had spoke with us and, saying, well, misinforming people, live TV.
She added that her family is close, so she would know if anyone had spoken with the former president of the United States. Mavi Garcia also said that the focus should be on her sister right now and slammed Trump for using her death to score political points and to demonize people who share her family's ethnicity.
It's always been about illegal immigrants. Nobody really speaks about when Americans do heinous crimes. And it's kind of shocking why he would just bring up illegals. What about Americans who do heinous crimes like this?
For its part, the Trump campaign declined to comment when asked to confirm if he had ever spoken to Garcia's family. And she's got a valid point when it comes to Trump's focus on lies when it comes to migrant crime. As NBC News recently reported, Trump's claims about waves of violent crime tied to migration just are not supported by national data. Expert analysis and available data from major city police departments show that despite several horrifying high-profile incidents, there is no evidence of a migrant-driven crime wave in the United States. In fact, crime in the U.S. is down nationwide. Of course, facts have never gotten in the way of anything for Donald Trump. Now, I should note that he did another appearance Tuesday in neighboring Wisconsin, where he repeated many of the same false and racist claims, calling migrants subhuman, although he'd already previewed that rhetoric on Monday in an interview with a Milwaukee talk radio station, where he repeated his Hitler-inspired language.
It's a very bad thing for our country. They're poisoning our country. You understand that better than anybody. They're literally poisoning our country.
In addition to being the same kind of disgusting and racist language employed by the German Führer in the 1930s, it's actually astounding that Trump would make that kind of comment, especially given where we are just a week ago, as the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore exposed exactly the kind of people that Donald Trump believes are poisoning the blood of our country. The 6 men who lost their lives filling potholes on the bridge in the wee hours of the cold and the dark. Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes, Dorleon Castillo Cabrera, Miguel Luna, Jose Lopez, Maynor Suazo, and a 6th unidentified colleague. The mother of Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes told NBC's Washington, D.C. station that she had deep pain in her heart over the death of her son. The remains of the married father of 4 were found last week in a red pickup truck that was submerged in the river. He was just 35 years old.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.